heavy metal music was always diverse. Always diverse. No matter how hard you try to spin it, no matter how hard you try to reach for the stars and skies and try to turn it to something that it actually isn't, this isn't up for dispute. This is about the cold, hard facts of life. And this genre has always been exactly that.
As I suspected, 32 flavors.
Whether it's a gay icon like Rob Halford singing for Judas Priest for X amount of years, first run, second run, yeah, I'm sure there's a few annoying guys who were there and were being douchebags about him being gay, but you know what? Fuck them. Don't give them the attention. When you give those types of assholes attention, all you're doing is amplifying and reinforcing their behaviors and making them want to do it that much more. So I'm the guys that fuck them. They don't exist. And I carry on because I like Judas Priest and I like Rob Halford. They got like Death Angel, who's a Filipino thrash metal band. And obviously, as later on, times happen, lineups change, and of course, the tragedy that happened many, many, many moons back. Obviously, they weren't all Filipino, but it didn't matter because what matters was the music. They were young too, so they got a lot of stuff about them being young. It's just like, yeah, okay, fine, that's a thing, but it's about the music that happens. The music. They got dudes like Alice Cooper. Guy's got a lady's name, but yeah, he's still out there kicking ass, taking names, still being great, still being amazingly Alice Cooper, and being the best Alice Cooper that we've ever got in the world. Let's look at the countries. We got Japan. They have the anthems of the world, the loudnesses of the world, and then they got the coffins on the death metal side of things. Then you could go down south to like Brazil, and they got the Sepulturas and the Chrysings of the world, to the lesser known stuff like the Fearless and the Violators. And that's a Latino country having really killer metal. Guess what? On top of it, the Latin countries, Argentina, Brazil, Chile. Chile's got a killer metal scene. Suppression, Ripper, like holy fuck, Critical Defiance. Like that country is loaded with Latin American bands and great ones on top of that. Some of my favorites that came out last year. And on top of it, those fans are diehard as fuck. And I mean, when I say diehard, they're fucking diehard because these fans, woo! They are passionate. Just look at the Megadeth Live in Argentina DVD. Those fans just aren't singing the lyrics of the song. They're freaking singing the riffs to the songs. Like the fucking songs, man. Like, holy shit, the songs? Yeah, that is Latin America dedication. So, of course, you're going to have some douchebag who's going to move the goalpost, some douchosaurus rex, but okay, so, but you got this country, but what about the females? What? What the? Well, guess what? Most dudes like it when there's girls involved in the genre, whether it's on the performance side or whether it's being as a fan in general. There's always have been women. Sure, there's nowhere near the amount there have men, but you know what? Who fucking cares? The women who do like it for what it is. They don't want it to change. They want to enjoy it for what it is. Now, don't have someone come in and say, okay, well, I want this, and that change. Well, then they're not accepting it for what it is. Do you go into your guy's room? Do you go in your boyfriend's room? You go in your girlfriend's room and say, okay, I like you, but I want to change this, and that about you. Yeah, that's what I thought. Two-way fucking street. So, for the Douchosaurus Rexes of the world, I don't really care about identity politics. That shit doesn't mean anything. It's just fucking flat out narcissism and people, I need to see myself. Go jerk off to yourself in front of a mirror, you shit bitch. But since we are mentioning it, let's talk about the Queen of Metal, Doro Pesch of Warlock, and of course Doro fame that she's been added with since. She is the Metal Queen. She's always had it, and she's still killing it to this very day. And of course, whichever singer's fronting Nightwish on Tuesday, in their revolving door and stuff. But you also got Girls' School on the traditional heavy metal side, and you got Derkata on the death metal side. And yes, I mentioned those two bands because, someone's going to change their argument because they can't flat out just accept being wrong. Girls' School and Derkata are bands that don't just have female singers, but they got female musicians. The whole band. And guess what? They're fucking good. Imagine that. They're fucking good. They are
the cream of the crop.
And like all things, race, sexuality, and all that shit, it doesn't make anything good nor bad. It's just a thing. You see me? I'm building here, guys. I'm building here. So let's go a few more rounds and open it up about some even wilder and crazier shit. Let's get even spicier, all right? Let's get into those hot button topics of religion and politics.
Does he look like a bitch?
Well, it is no surprise that you have bands from like Norway and Sweden, a lot of the Scandinavias of the like, are very blasphemous sounding and looking with their music. All those bands, and then you got bands like Striper, who fucking kick ass, by the way. Put a fork in it if you don't like it. And they're kick ass. And they're not kick ass because of them being Christian or even black metal, because they are obviously very blasphemous. It's just because they are good. Remember when I said the whole thing about meritocracy 800,000 times? Not in this video particularly, but throughout my history. I've always been a meritocracy type of guy, and that is about being consistent and committing and actually having principles to my fucking arguments and believing in that. And of course, you got guys like Tom Araya and Slayer's guy, Kerry King, who are very religiously different, very politically different. But we'll get to the politics later. But Tom Araya, Dave Mustaine, Steve Harris, they're guys who found God, and hey, great. You do you. I have no judgment towards that type of thing. Because in order to actually like be accepting and tolerance, that's a fucking two-way street, not just a one-way street. And then me personally, yeah, once again, I don't care about that stuff. Because Slayer's music is still about what Slayer sings about. Iron Maiden's music is still about what Iron Maiden tends to sing about. Imagine that. Now let's get to the big bad P word. No. Put your dicks away. Put your dicks away.
You have the biggest dick I've ever seen on a man.
I have seen the absolute worst arguments from both sides of the political spectrum when it comes to politics and music. You got one side being, oh, keep your politics out of the music. And I was just like, okay. Well, if you're going to say that, you got to be very, very mindful of who you say that about, because there are guys who sing about things and they're a bit more subtle and they're not very overt about their approach to how they sing about politics. So when they're at a rally, that shouldn't surprise you too much. Obviously, you got a lot of people who are casual listeners, so they don't really pay attention. So it shocks them that much more. Like, oh, what the fuck? Like, this guy's doing that. Well, you gotta be watchful. You gotta be watchful, man. Don't be ignorant. I know we're all ignorant on something in the world to a point, but you gotta be like very, very watchful of that type of stuff. And now, of course, if you had a guy like Lemmy, should he were to still been alive, who have gone off on politics, I've been fucking weird because he hated politicians. He fucking hated both sides of the political spectrum. Now that I can understand, because he's not known for being this guy who advocates for the candidates and the politicians and the crooks in the suits. So that part I get. And then you have that whole other side. Oh, the fucking insufferable side. It was always political. It always was. No, it wasn't. Because in order for it to always be political, all the bands who sing about Dungeons and Dragons and fighting off those things, singing about personal issues, singing about violence, or even about partying, or some guy who's singing about wanting a Pepsi, all those songs would have to not exist. All of them. So in order for your argument to actually make sense, you have to commit to it. And you're not even capable of committing to that argument because you're only hearing what you want to selectively hear. And then you got bands who are just, flaky and wish-washy, and who actually rage in support of the machine, who pretend that issues only happen when there's Republican in office, which is like, okay, Republicans cause a lot of problems, but guess what? Democrats cause problems too. I know, right? These people, they don't get it. So yeah, once again, there's horror too. Lots of horror, gore bands. Then of course you got the political bands, Dying Fetus, Misery Index, Napalm Death, Creator. They do that shit. And there's of course the leanings. Now this is my opinion here. I can't prove shit here. I'm just taking an educated guess. Maybe 50 to 60%. Whether they're more open about it or closed off about it, probably 50 to 60% of the actual members in all the bands probably on the left side. And they had that 40%. Probably right-wing, libertarian, maybe independent, or even just apolitical, flat out not political at all. That's the one part of this whole thing. That's just my guess and my opinion. Because once again, you have like the grind and the power violence. That stuff is super, super hardcore left-leaning. Then you got, Dave Mustaine, who is obviously very independent. You got David Sanchez from Havoc. He seems more on the libertarian side of things. You got Tom Hunting, Steve Souza. One voted for Donald Trump, one definitely did not. And they're both in the same band because Exodus is a band that has actual political, diverse way of thought. Now that, my friends, is actual diversity. Not that superficial garbage they try to plaster your TV with. So remember this the next time you see some bullshit propaganda from LA Weekly or Blabbermouth about how the genre needs to be more diverse and inclusive. Buzzwords that are substanceless. It's all one big fat Rosie O'Donnell size lie, because to them, diversity is just people who look different but all think the same way. So ultimately, in other words, it's just different shades of the same way of thought. So I don't know if it's the journalists just not doing their homework, or are they just pretending it doesn't exist and they did do their homework because it doesn't benefit the narrative that they're trying to spew out of their fuckle? I don't know which one is. Either way, whichever way it is, it's not good. So the moral of the story here is that heavy metal music as a genre, subgenre, whichever, has always been diverse. And anyone telling you otherwise is not only lying, but they can flat out fucking shove it.